Our world is built on noise, a relentless stream of words demanding your attention and your reply. Yet a 2,000-year-old philosophy offers a radical alternative, the Stoic practice of measured speech. This is not about never talking, but about mastering a profound discipline of silence. By the end of this exploration, you will have a complete framework for choosing your words with the power and precision of a Stoic sage. We will uncover why they believed speaking less was the key to inner peace and clear judgment, and how their definition of necessary speech could resolve modern conflicts before they even begin. What does it truly mean to have your words align with your deepest values? For the Stoics, a necessary word was a rare and valuable currency. They would not spend it on just anything. Their standard was strict but beautifully clear. A statement had to pass 3 tests before it earned the right to be spoken. It had to be true, it had to be beneficial, and it had to be kind. This is the core filter, the litmus test for every potential sentence. Notice how this goes far beyond simple utility or basic information sharing. A fact can be true but utterly harmful. An opinion can be beneficial to you but cruel to another. The Stoic ideal demands all 3 qualities simultaneously, weaving truth, benefit, and kindness into a single, purposeful expression. This transforms speech from a casual reaction into a moral act, an obligation to the common good of your community. Your words become To speak under this discipline is to build understanding and harmony, stone by deliberate stone. So what failed their test? Unnecessary speech was a broad category they saw as draining the spirit and muddying the mind. It included the idle gossip that dissects another person's life for entertainment. It included the reflexive complaining that amplifies hardship without seeking solution. It included boasting, which seeks to elevate the self by diminishing the regard for others. And perhaps most common of all, it included speaking without thought, the automatic stream of words we use to fill quiet spaces, often revealing more than we intend. This philosophy of measured speech did not spring from nowhere. It has deep roots. Centuries before the great Stoic teachers, the philosopher Socrates was said to employ a similar mental gait. He spoke of 3 sieves through which one should pass information before sharing it. The first sieve was truth. Are you absolutely certain what you are about to say is true? The second sieve was goodness. Is what you are saying something good or necessary? And the third sieve was usefulness. Will this information be useful to the person hearing it? The resonance with Stoic thought is unmistakable. It establishes a lineage of wisdom, a thread connecting thinkers across generations who understood the immense power and profound responsibility carried on the breath. They recognized that our speech is not merely a description of the world, but an active force that shapes it. To wield that force carelessly is to live at odds with wisdom itself. This discipline of measured speech was built upon a profound psychological architecture, a fortress within the mind the Stoics called the inner citadel. Think of your consciousness not as an open field, but as a walled garden. Every word you speak to the outside world is a gate opened, and with every gate opened, something from the outside can rush in. Constant chatter, the need to comment on everything, the habit of reacting with immediate speech, these actions leave the gates perpetually unguarded. The winds of other people's opinions, the storms of trivial conflict, the debris of gossip, they all sweep in unchecked. Your inner peace, your clarity of judgment, becomes scattered and difficult to find. The garden is no longer a place of cultivation, but a thoroughfare for every passing thought and emotion. The Stoic practice of intentional silence is the deliberate act of closing those gates. It is not a retreat from the world, but a strategic consolidation of your own resources. In that quiet space, free from the compulsion to outwardly react, you create room for what they called Prohairesis. This is your faculty of moral choice, your deepest capacity to assess an impression and decide, with reason, how you will respond. An insult arrives not as a command to retaliate, but as a piece of data to be examined. A piece of gossip is not a spark to be fanned, but a distraction to be dismissed. By not immediately speaking, you protect your inner citadel from being tossed about by these external events. You move from being a leaf in the wind to being the calm at the center. This internal discipline, this fortified quiet, does not stay locked inside. It naturally begins to shape your presence in the world. When your mind is not cluttered with reactive noise, your perception clears. You start to see situations not just for what they demand of your tongue, but for what they truly are. This cultivated silence becomes the bedrock from which all necessary speech can finally and powerfully emerge. That fortified quiet within your mind is where the most critical Stoic skill comes alive, the discipline of assent. This is the practice of pausing before you accept any initial impression as truth, before you let it dictate your emotions and your actions. And nowhere is this pause more powerful or more visible than in conversation. Between the stimulus you receive and the response you give, there exists a space. A comment arrives, an insult is thrown, a provocation lands. Your first impression is immediate, a raw emotional surge, perhaps of anger, hurt, or the urge to defend yourself. The untrained mind rushes to assent to this impression. It accepts the insult as a true verdict. It accepts the anger as a command to speak, and so words fire back, often words you later wish you could reclaim. The Stoic sees that space not as an empty moment, but as the most fertile ground for wisdom. Their practice is to withhold automatic assent, to let that initial impression hang in the air of your consciousness, unconfirmed. And here is where silence becomes the physical manifestation of that profound cognitive pause. By choosing not to speak in that immediate moment, you are not being passive. You are actively creating room for your reason to step forward. You are allowing your inner faculty, your Prohairesis, to examine the impression. Is this comment true? Is responding to it beneficial? Would my response be kind? This is the threefold filter applied in real time. Take the example of harsh criticism or a personal insult. The first impression screams for a counterattack, a witty put-down, a justification. But in the silence of withheld assent, you can ask different questions. Is there any useful truth buried in this comment, however poorly delivered? Would my retaliation improve the situation or simply escalate it? Does this person's opinion actually define my worth? By pausing, you separate the event itself from your judgment about it. The insult is just a string of sounds. Your assent, or lack of it, determines whether those sounds become a wound. This silence is not weakness, it is immense strength. It is the space where you reclaim your sovereignty from every external provocation. You move from being a puppet whose strings are pulled by other people's words to being the author of your own reasoned response. And sometimes after that pause, the most virtuous and powerful response remains no spoken words at all. You have already won the true battle, the internal one for your own peace. From this place of disciplined inner silence, the Stoics then asked a practical question. If a word does pass all your tests and is deemed necessary, how should it be delivered? Their answer points to a quality that transforms effective speech into something far greater. The power of a well-chosen word lies not just in its delivery, but in the profound quiet that precedes it. This cultivated silence, this disciplined pause, is far from empty. For the Stoics, it was the most fertile ground for genuine understanding. They saw listening not as a passive gap between speeches, but as the active, superior path to wisdom. While speaking offers what you already know, listening opens the door to everything you do not. In that receptive quiet, the world begins to reveal its truths. You can observe the unguarded character of others, not in their prepared statements, but in their casual remarks and telling reactions. You can discern the hidden dynamics of a room, the unspoken alliances, the subtle tensions that words often mask. Most importantly, you can witness the parade of your own internal impulses, the urges to interrupt, to correct, to boast, or to defend as they arise and then, in the space of your silence, gently subside. The Stoic teacher Epictetus offered a simple, physiological reminder of this priority. "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth," he noted, "so that we might listen twice as much as we speak." This is not an arbitrary ratio, but a prescription for learning. Every moment your mouth is closed is a moment your mind can be open, collecting data, refining judgment, and avoiding the countless errors that come from speaking before you truly understand. Think of a heated debate or a complex negotiation. The person who speaks immediately often reveals their entire position, their fears, and their weaknesses. The person who listens first, who embraces a tactical and observant silence, gathers intelligence. They learn what the other person truly values, what they are afraid to lose, and what logic might actually reach them. This silence is a position of immense strategic strength because it is rooted in patience and a desire for real comprehension, not just the noise of being heard. It transforms you from a broadcaster into a student of human nature, constantly updating your understanding of the world and the people in it. This epistemic silence, this state of active receptivity, prepares you for the final and perhaps most challenging application of Stoic speech. It equips you for the moments when words are unavoidable, when conflict is imminent, and the old scripts of anger or blame begin to play in your mind. Every word you release into the world carries an ethical weight. For the Stoics, speech was not merely a description of reality. It was an action, a tangible force that altered the landscape between people. Once spoken, your words detach from you completely. They become external events, objects now outside your control, traveling on ears and into minds where you cannot recall or reshape them. This irreversible nature gives language its profound moral gravity. A careless remark can plant a seed of doubt that grows for years. A harsh criticism can become a story someone tells themselves about their own worth. A piece of gossip can unravel trust in an entire community. The harm is not metaphorical. It is a real discord introduced into the shared space of human connection. Because of this, the Stoics insisted that our speech must align with our highest duty, what they called kathikonta, meaning appropriate actions or duties. These are the acts that reason demands of a social being, the behaviors that fulfill our role in the commonwealth of humanity. Speaking, therefore, is not a neutral right, but a duty to be performed with excellence. Your words must befit a person striving for virtue. They must aim to inform, to assist, to reconcile, to build up. This transforms every conversation from a casual exchange into a potential act of justice, courage, or kindness. Consider the stark contrast in daily life. Careless speech is a generator of unnecessary entanglements. It is the offhand complaint that spreads a mood of resentment through a team. It is the unverified rumor shared in confidence that poisons a friendship. It is the definitive judgment issued in anger that closes a door forever. Each of these creates knots, conflicts that must later be painfully untangled, if they can be untangled at all. They scatter debris in your path and the paths of others, creating obstacles to peace that you yourself must then navigate. Considered speech, guided by the concept of duty, operates in the opposite direction. It seeks to foster harmony. It is the clarifying question asked instead of an accusation. It is the honest feedback delivered with clear intent to help, not to hurt. It is the refusal to amplify a conflict by adding your own inflammatory voice to the chorus. This kind of speech is a constructive act. It smooths the path ahead. It builds bridges of understanding where before there were only chasms of assumption. When you weigh your words against this standard of appropriate action, you begin to see conversation as a form of craftsmanship. You are not just making sounds, you are shaping the moral environment around you, one deliberate, well-chosen phrase at a time. This understanding of speech as a sacred duty leads to a final, practical question. If our words are such powerful acts, how do we actually train ourselves to wield them wisely in the heat of the moment, when emotions run high and silence feels impossible? This understanding of speech as a sacred duty connects directly to the Stoics' grandest vision of human life, the idea of cosmopolitanism. To them, a wise person was not merely a citizen of Rome or Athens, but a citizen of the cosmos itself, a member of the universal city of all rational beings. Your primary loyalty, therefore, was not to a tribe or a nation, but to the shared project of humanity. Your actions, including your speech, were contributions to the common welfare of this cosmic city. Think of it like this. If you lived in a small, tightly knit village where everyone's well-being depended on mutual respect and cooperation, you would choose your words with immense care. You would avoid spreading rumors that could turn neighbor against neighbor. You would offer help and clarification instead of criticism that breeds resentment. You would speak to build bridges, not walls. The Stoics argued that our true reality is exactly that, but on a global scale. Every person you meet, directly or indirectly, is your fellow citizen in this vast human polis. From this perspective, every word you utter becomes a civic act. Is your speech serving the common good, or is it serving only your own pride, your irritation, or your desire for entertainment at another's expense? Unnecessary and harmful speech is like littering in the town square of the cosmic city. It creates discord, fractures trust, and weakens the social bonds that allow the community to function. Gossip erodes the foundation of mutual respect. Boasting builds walls of separation. Reactive anger shatters the peace that allows for reasoned dialogue. Each of these acts is a failure of your cosmopolitan duty. It is choosing to be a vandal in the city you are supposed to help build. Conversely, necessary and virtuous speech is the work of a dedicated citizen. It is the word of encouragement that helps a fellow citizen persevere. It is the honest feedback offered privately and kindly to help someone improve. It is the clear statement of truth that dispels a harmful falsehood circulating in the community. It is the refusal to engage in a conflict that would only cause wider damage. This kind of speech repairs and strengthens the fabric of connection. It maintains the roads of understanding so that commerce in ideas and compassion can flow freely. When you pause and apply the threefold filter, asking if your words are true, beneficial, and kind, you are performing a vital civic service. You are auditing your contribution to the health of the whole. In this light, the disciplined silence we have been exploring is reframed. It is not a personal preference for quiet, nor is it a shy retreat. It is a profound social responsibility. By choosing silence over unnecessary noise, you are actively refusing to pollute the shared space of human interaction. You are preserving the clarity and peace of the common ground so that when truly necessary words are spoken, they can be heard. Your restraint becomes a gift to your fellow citizens, a commitment to a higher quality of public discourse. It is how you tend the gardens of the cosmic city, ensuring they remain places where reason and virtue can grow. This vision transforms the simple act of holding your tongue from a personal discipline into a civic virtue, a quiet but powerful way to honor your membership in the human family. The cosmic city thrives on the quiet contributions of its citizens, but how does one actually build this capacity for meaningful silence? The Stoics were not just philosophers of theory, they were relentless trainers of the mind, and they left us a clear regimen for strengthening this very muscle. Their methods were practical, daily, and transformative, designed to move the ideal of measured speech from a distant concept to a lived reality. The first exercise is the most direct, a practice Seneca himself endorsed. He advised setting aside a portion of each day for deliberate, self-imposed silence. This is not a vow of complete muteness, but a dedicated period where you consciously refrain from all unnecessary talk. You go about your tasks, you interact with others, but you speak only when a word passes the threefold filter of truth, benefit, and kindness. The goal here is not to become a statue, but to create a laboratory for observation. In that self-imposed quiet, you become acutely aware of the automatic impulses that normally govern your tongue. You notice the urge to fill an awkward pause with chatter, the temptation to offer an unsolicited opinion, the reflexive complaint about a minor inconvenience. By not acting on these impulses, you break their chain of command. You insert a gap between the feeling and the action, and in that gap you reclaim your choice. This daily practice is like strength training for your faculty of assent. It makes the pause tangible, teaching you that you are not your first impulse to speak. The second exercise turns from prevention to reflection. Each evening, the Stoics performed a rigorous review of their day, a practice they called an examination of conscience. A central part of this review was a careful audit of their words. They would ask themselves questions with unflinching honesty. Did I speak today without thinking? Did my words cause any unnecessary harm, even unintentionally? Did I miss an opportunity where a kind or truthful word was needed? This is not about self-condemnation, but about calibration. It is the process of a craftsman looking over the day's work, noting where the chisel slipped, and resolving to hold it more steadily tomorrow. This nightly review transforms your speech from a series of forgotten moments into a curriculum for your own moral development. You begin to see patterns, perhaps a tendency to dominate conversations or a habit of cynical commentary. With awareness comes the possibility of change. The final exercise prepares you for the future, a technique known as premeditation. Before entering a potentially difficult conversation, a meeting, or even a casual social gathering, the Stoic would pause to mentally rehearse. They would anticipate the kinds of things that might be said, the provocations that could arise, and they would pre-commit to their principles of response. They might remind themselves, if someone speaks in anger, I will not receive it as an insult but as an expression of their own distress. If gossip begins, I will not participate but gently steer the talk elsewhere. This is not scripting a performance but fortifying your inner citadel in advance. It ensures that when the moment of pressure arrives, your values are not a distant theory but a ready protocol. Your pause is not one of panic but of purposeful recall. Together, these three practices form a complete training cycle. Deliberate silence builds the foundational muscle of restraint. The evening review provides the feedback for course correction, and premeditation prepares you to apply your training under real-world conditions. This is how the philosophy of silence moves from the page and into the rhythm of your life, one conscious breath, one reviewed day, one prepared conversation at a time. But this discipline of speech faces a relentless internal adversary, one that thrives on the very noise we seek to master, the ego. For the Stoics, a primary source of unnecessary chatter was not ignorance but vanity, the deep-seated desire to be seen, to be heard, to be valued as clever or profound. This is the compulsion to perform rather than to communicate, to elevate the self rather than to illuminate the subject. It turns conversation into a stage and every interaction into an audition for approval. Seneca observed this with sharp clarity, particularly among the learned circles of his time. He wrote scathingly of the dinner party philosopher, the individual who cannot listen to a point without immediately launching into a rehearsed monologue to showcase their own erudition. Their speech is not a thoughtful contribution to a shared inquiry. It is a soliloquy delivered to a captive audience. He criticized the showy orator whose sentences are crafted not for clarity or truth, but for ornate complexity and theatrical effect, designed to elicit applause rather than understanding. In both cases, the purpose of speech has been corrupted. It is no longer about the true, the beneficial, or the kind. It is about the speaker's own image. This vanity is poison to necessary speech because it makes the act of talking about securing an external reward, the fleeting admiration of others. Your words become tethered to their reactions. If a witty remark will draw laughter, you are compelled to make it, even if it edges into cruelty. If a complex argument will impress, you feel driven to deliver it, even if it confuses more than it clarifies. The Stoic goal of inner citadel, that fortified self-sufficiency, is directly undermined. You have moved your command center outside of yourself, letting the smiles, the nods, the bored glances of others dictate your verbal output. Your peace becomes dependent on their validation. Consider a common modern scenario, the meeting where ideas are being discussed. The person speaking from vanity listens only partially, already formulating their own point to seize the conversational spotlight. Their contribution may be clever, it may even be correct, but its core intention is to display intelligence, not to collaboratively solve a problem. The necessary word, perhaps a simple question that would clarify a key issue for everyone, goes unspoken because it seems too basic, too unimpressive. Or think of social media, the ultimate arena for performative speech, where a post is often crafted not for its benefit to the reader, but for the metrics of likes and shares it might generate. This is vanity operating at scale, a constant churning of words aimed at manufacturing a sense of external worth. The Stoic remedy for this is to ruthlessly examine the source of your impulse to speak. Before the words leave your mouth, ask yourself a fourth, silent question beyond truth, benefit, and kindness. For whom am I speaking? Is this for the common good of the conversation, for the understanding of the other person, for the resolution of a real issue? Or is it for me? Is it to relieve my own discomfort with silence, to assert my presence, to win a point, to be remembered as the clever one? This introspection is humbling, and it is meant to be. It dismantles the performative self. When you identify the whisper of vanity, you can choose to disarm it. You can choose the quiet that feels, in the moment, like a defeat to the ego, but is in truth a victory for your character. You make room for others to be heard. You create space for a more genuine, less curated thought to eventually emerge. By refusing to feed the desire to be heard, you starve the very engine of so much unnecessary noise. And in that self-imposed quiet, you might just hear something far more valuable than the sound of your own voice. The true test of this philosophy arrives not in quiet contemplation, but in the heat of confrontation. When an insult is thrown your way, when a provocation is designed to elicit a reaction, every instinct screams for a verbal counterattack. This is where the Stoic discipline of silence faces its most difficult and revealing examination. Their perspective on this matter is both radical and liberating. They held that an insult in itself is powerless. It is merely a collection of sounds, a vibration in the air. It carries no inherent ability to damage your character, your virtue, or your inner peace. The harm only occurs if you, the receiver, give it that power. You must assent to it. You must internally agree, yes, what this person says about me is true, and therefore I am wounded. By reacting with immediate anger or a retaliatory jab, you are doing precisely that. You are confirming the insult's validity with your own emotional energy. You are handing over the keys to your inner citadel. Strategic silence in this moment is not a sign of defeat or weakness. It is an act of immense power. It is the conscious refusal to grant that external noise any internal authority. Your quiet becomes a shield that the insult cannot penetrate. It demonstrates a fortitude that words cannot easily convey. You deprive the provocation of the very fuel it seeks, your reaction. Without that fuel, the conflict often simply sputters and dies, leaving the one who hurled the insult standing alone with their own bitterness. History offers profound examples of this principle in action. Socrates, facing condemnation and scorn from the Athenian court, responded not with outrage, but with reasoned discourse and a calm acceptance of the outcome he deemed unjust. The Roman Stoic Cato the Younger was famed for his unshakable composure, often infuriating his political opponents with his serene silence in the face of their personal attacks. In both cases, their restraint was not passive. It was a powerful statement of self-possession. It communicated that their sense of worth was derived from an internal source, one that no external opinion could reach or diminish. Imagine a common scenario. A colleague makes a snide remark about your work in a meeting. The immediate impulse is to defend yourself, to correct them publicly, to fire back. But in that crucial pause, you apply the filter. Is a public debate true, beneficial, or kind in this setting? Often, it is none of these. It escalates tension and makes the meeting about personal conflict. A strategic silence, followed perhaps by a later, private conversation, dismantles the drama. It shows you are governed by reason, not by petty emotion. Your quiet in that moment becomes the loudest declaration of your character. It proves that your inner harmony is not for sale at the price of a fleeting verbal victory. This is the ultimate application of measured speech, knowing that sometimes the most necessary word is the one you consciously choose not to say. Silence becomes an act of intellectual honesty when you simply do not know. This is where Stoic discipline meets one of philosophy's oldest and most humbling insights, the wisdom of Socrates. His famous declaration that he knew nothing was not a confession of stupidity, but a profound methodological starting point. It was an acknowledgement of the vastness of the unknown and a shield against the arrogance of false certainty. The Stoics deeply admired this stance, weaving it into their own practice of measured speech. Intellectual humility, the clear-eyed recognition of the limits of your own knowledge, became a core virtue. It meant having the courage to say, I have not studied this enough, or I do not understand that fully, and therefore I will not speak as if I do. This is silence rooted not in shyness but in integrity. It is the refusal to contribute to the noise of misinformation or half-formed opinions. In a world that often rewards quick answers and confident takes, this can feel like a radical and uncomfortable position. We feel a social pressure to have an instant opinion on every headline, every controversy, every complex issue that flashes across our screens. The unspoken rule seems to be that silence equals ignorance, while speaking, even without substance, signals engagement and intelligence. The Stoic practice pushes directly against this pressure. It asks you to value the quality of your contribution over the mere fact of contributing. Consider a dinner conversation that turns to an intricate scientific discovery or a nuanced geopolitical conflict. The easy path is to parrot a talking point you heard, to offer a vague generalization that sounds informed. The Stoic path, guided by intellectual humility, might look different. It might involve listening intently, asking thoughtful questions to learn more, and honestly admitting the boundaries of your own understanding. Your silence in that moment, your refusal to bluff, does not diminish you. It quietly elevates the entire discourse. It creates space for genuine learning and models a respect for truth that is far more impressive than any performance of knowledge. This humility protects you from a host of errors. It prevents you from spreading misinformation you have not verified. It stops you from offering advice on matters outside your expertise, advice that could genuinely lead others astray. It guards you from the embarrassment and loss of trust that inevitably follow when a hastily stated opinion is revealed to be shallow or incorrect. Your words retain their power because you have not diluted them with guesswork. Each statement you do make carries more weight because it comes from a place of considered understanding. This disciplined silence in the face of the unknown is paradoxically how true knowledge begins. It is the fertile ground in which curiosity can grow. By admitting what you do not know, you give yourself permission to seek answers, to read deeply, to listen to those who have dedicated their lives to a subject. Your speech, when it finally comes, will be built on a foundation, not on sand. It transforms you from a broadcaster of reactions into a student of the world, and in that transformation, you find a deeper, more authentic kind of authority. Every word you speak is a withdrawal from a finite inner account. This is the Stoic view of speech as an economic act, a transaction that spends two of your most vital resources, attention and energy. When you speak, you are not just moving air, you are directing your conscious focus outward, committing mental effort to formulate thought into language, and often investing emotional capital in the reaction you hope to receive. A constant stream of talk, therefore, is a form of cognitive and emotional spending. It scatters your attention across a dozen trivial topics and depletes the energy reserves you need for the moments that truly demand your full presence. The Stoic practice of silence is, in this light, a disciplined practice of conservation. It is the decision to stop leaking your precious internal resources on commentary, gossip, and reactive chatter, so that you can amass a reserve for what matters. Think of your mind as a lantern in a dark room. Every unnecessary word is like swinging that lantern wildly, casting fleeting, chaotic light on random corners, quickly exhausting the oil. Measured silence is the act of holding the lantern steady, focusing its beam on the path directly ahead, the obstacle you need to navigate, or the face of the person you are truly listening to. You conserve light, you conserve fuel, and in doing so, you see with far greater clarity. This is not about hoarding energy selfishly, but about allocating it wisely toward your highest purposes, your judgments, and your virtuous actions. When you are not mentally exhausted from narrating every minor irritation or defending every casual opinion, you have a surplus. That surplus is what allows you to respond with patience in a crisis, to offer thoughtful counsel to a friend in need, or to persist in a difficult task without the inner voice of complaint draining your resolve. Your energy is no longer dissipated, it is consolidated and ready for deployment. In a world designed to hijack your attention at every turn, this cultivated silence becomes your most efficient tool for reclaiming sovereignty over your own mind. It allows you to invest your focus like a concentrated currency into the projects and relationships you have consciously chosen to value. This disciplined silence must never be mistaken for indifference. A common and dangerous misinterpretation of Stoic quiet is the belief that it means turning away from injustice, that it advocates a passive acceptance of wrongdoing in the name of personal peace. Nothing could be further from the truth. The Stoic philosophy of measured speech is not a philosophy of inaction. It is a philosophy of right action, and speaking out against clear harm is often the most necessary speech of all. The distinction lies not in whether you speak, but in how you speak, and from what inner place your words originate. The silent sage and the apathetic bystander may look similar on the surface, but their internal worlds are universes apart. The bystander is silent out of fear, laziness, or a genuine lack of care. They see the wrong and choose comfort over courage. Their silence is a vacuum, an absence of moral engagement. The Stoic, however, is silent first as a strategic choice, a gathering of clarity and resolve. Their quiet is a charged pause, a preparation for a response that is measured, powerful, and effective. When they do speak against an injustice, it is not a reactive outburst of anger or self-righteous indignation. It is a considered statement of principle, delivered with calm conviction. The emotion of outrage has been transformed through reason into the virtue of courage. Their speech is purposeful, aimed not at venting personal feeling, but at correcting a wrong and upholding the common good of the cosmic city. Think of a witness to an act of cruelty or dishonesty. The cowardly or apathetic person looks away, mutters to themselves, or quickly exits the scene, their silence complicit in allowing the harm to continue. The person ruled by untamed passion might leap in with shouting and accusations, escalating the situation into a chaotic conflict where the original wrong is lost in the noise. The Stoic ideal operates differently. They would take that crucial moment of silence to assess, is intervention truly needed? What is the most effective way to intervene? Can I de-escalate or must I confront? Then their speech emerges from that calm center. It might be a firm, clear directive to stop. It might be a question that exposes the inconsistency of the harmful act. It might be a simple statement of observed fact that holds a mirror up to the behavior. The tone is steady. The words are chosen for maximum impact with minimum inflammatory drama. This is speech as a surgical tool, not a blunt weapon. It fulfills the social duty to protect the fabric of the community while preserving the speaker's own inner equilibrium. The goal is not to perform heroism or to shame the wrongdoer, but to restore balance and justice. Their necessary word is an act of repair for the world, spoken from an unshakable fortress within. Once the decision to speak has been made, the work is only half done. The Stoics believed the character of the words themselves mattered just as much as their necessity. They championed a style of speech that was direct, clear, and above all, brief. This is the principle of Laconic speech, a term inspired by the famously terse warriors of ancient Sparta, but perfected by the philosophers of Rome. When a word is necessary, every extra syllable is a burden. Unnecessary elaboration does not illuminate truth, it obscures it. It creates a fog of qualification, a maze of tangents where the core message gets lost. Imagine a commander giving orders in the chaos of battle. He does not deliver a philosophical discourse on the nature of conflict. He issues clear, concise directives. Left flank, hold, archers, loose, advance. Each word is a precise tool, carrying maximum meaning with minimum sound. This was the Stoic ideal for all necessary communication. It treats the listener's time and attention with profound respect. It assumes their intelligence and gets directly to the point. In your own life, consider the difference between a simple, direct apology and one buried in a long story of excuses. The first carries the weight of responsibility. The second often feels like an attempt to disperse that weight, to dilute the acknowledgement of a mistake with a cloud of words. The Stoic seeks the former. Clarity and brevity are the natural partners to selective silence. One practice conserves your inner energy by choosing when to speak. The other conserves the shared energy of a conversation by making each chosen word count. This value was not merely philosophical. It was woven into the fabric of Roman identity, evident in their military discipline, their legal codes, and the personal writings of their greatest emperor. Marcus Aurelius did not compose his meditations as a public treatise. He wrote them as private reminders to himself, and in their pages we see this principle in its purest form. His entries are not long-winded essays, they are sharp, piercing observations. He writes, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." Or waste no more time arguing what a good man should be one. There is no ornamentation here, no attempt to sound impressive. It is thought distilled to its essence. This is speech stripped of ego, aimed solely at utility and truth. It is the verbal equivalent of a well-made tool, perfectly fitted to its task. This conciseness is a form of intellectual honesty. It forces you to know what you truly mean before you open your mouth. It prevents you from hiding a weak idea behind a flood of impressive vocabulary. When you commit to brevity, you are committing to precision. You must find the exact word, the simplest sentence structure, the most direct path to your meaning. This discipline, in turn, makes your silence more potent. When people learn that your words are always measured and meaningful, The moments you choose to speak carry a gravity that endless chatter could never achieve. Your quiet is no longer seen as absence but as a gathering of force, and your speech, when it comes, cuts through the noise like a blade. Marcus Aurelius never faced a notification. The Roman world, for all its bustle, moved at the speed of a horse or a sailing ship. Our world is different. The digital age has constructed a global, perpetual town square that never sleeps, never pauses, and demands your opinion on everything right now. The Stoic critique of unnecessary speech finds its ultimate proving ground here, in the endless scroll of social media feeds and the constant ping of messaging apps. This is noise amplified to a cosmic scale, and it presents a profound challenge to the inner citadel. Every platform is engineered to bypass your faculty of assent, to turn your raw impression into an immediate reaction, a like, a share, a furious reply. The pressure to broadcast is immense, to curate a persona, to have a take on every tragedy and triumph unfolding in real time across the globe. This digital arena is where the Stoic disciplines of truth, benefit, and kindness are most urgently needed, and yet often feel most impossible to practice. Consider the mechanics of a typical online interaction. You read a provocative post, perhaps about a complex social issue. Your first impression arrives, a surge of agreement or outrage. The design of the platform offers you immediate buttons for expression. There is no built-in pause, no mandatory space for the threefold filter. The path of least resistance is to react, to add your voice to the chorus, to signal your alignment or your anger. This is speech stripped of all the physical and social cues that normally slow us down, the sight of another person's face, the tone of their voice. It is pure, disembodied text hurled into the void, and it carries all the ethical weight of spoken words with none of the immediate human consequences. Gossip is no longer confined to a small circle. It can become a viral narrative that defines a person's life. Complaining is no longer a private vent. It is a performance of grievance that can attract an audience and solidify a mindset of victimhood. Boasting is quantified in likes and follower counts, creating an external scoreboard for self-worth. The digital town square is littered with the debris of unnecessary speech, and we are all wading through it, often adding our own piece to the pile. This is why the Stoic pause is now a radical act of digital hygiene. Before you retweet that angering headline, you must create your own space for assent. Is this information verified? Is it true? Will sharing it benefit anyone, or will it only spread more anxiety? Is my commentary kind, or is it merely adding heat to a situation I do not fully understand? The discipline of measured speech becomes the practice of being a citizen in this chaotic new cosmic city. It means sometimes writing the long comment and then deleting it, recognizing it served your ego more than the conversation. It means choosing a direct message over a public call out, seeking understanding over scoring points. It means accepting that not every thought in your head deserves a global audience, that your silence in the digital noise can be a profound contribution to its clarity. Your quiet refusal to participate in the cycle of reaction is how you begin to rebuild your inner citadel, brick by digital brick, in an age designed to keep its gates perpetually blown open. The ancient Stoics were architects of the mind, and modern science is now confirming the structural integrity of their blueprints. Contemporary research provides a fascinating validation, showing that the discipline of silence they championed offers measurable benefits for our mental and emotional well-being. This connection bridges a 2,000-year gap, transforming a philosophical ideal into a psychologically sound practice. Studies in the field of psychophysiology reveal that intentional periods of quiet can significantly lower cortisol, the body's primary stress hormone. When we step away from the noise, both external and self-generated, our nervous system shifts from a state of high alert to one of restoration. This is the biological counterpart to the Stoic inner citadel, a physiological grounding that makes us less reactive to life's provocations. The constant mental chatter of planning, worrying, and narrating our experience, what psychologists often call the default mode network, is a significant cognitive drain. Strategic silence, whether through meditation, mindful walking, or simply disengaging from conversation, allows this network to settle. The result is not an empty mind, but a clearer one. Cognitive resources are freed up, leading to improved focus, enhanced problem-solving abilities, and greater creativity. This is the science behind the Stoic claim of clear judgment. When the static of unnecessary internal dialogue fades, your faculty of reason, your Prohairesis, operates with less interference. You are not thinking more, you are thinking better. Furthermore, this practice strengthens emotional regulation. The pause between a stimulus and your response is not just philosophical, it is neurological. Creating that space through deliberate quiet allows the prefrontal cortex, the brain's executive center responsible for reasoned choice, to catch up with the amygdala, the region that triggers emotional reactions. This neural delay is the physical mechanism of the Stoic discipline of assent. By practicing silence, you are literally strengthening the brain's circuitry for patience and thoughtful response, making you less likely to be hijacked by fleeting anger or hurt. What the Stoics described as achieving inner peace through measured speech, science describes as downregulating the stress response and enhancing top-down cognitive control. This research does not diminish the philosophy. It grounds its profound wisdom in the workings of our own biology. The peace they sought was not a mystical abstraction, but an attainable state of a quieted and integrated nervous system. It confirms that choosing silence is not a withdrawal from life, but a deep and necessary investment in the very equipment you use to navigate it. A philosophy becomes real only when it leaves the page and enters the rhythm of your day. We have explored the profound why behind Stoic silence, but the true transformation begins with the practical how. This is where we move from understanding to implementation by designing a personal silence protocol. Think of it not as a set of rigid rules, but as a series of gentle gates you install in your own mind, filters through which every potential word must pass before it earns the right to be spoken. The most powerful and timeless filter remains the threefold question we have already encountered, but now we give it a deliberate, daily application. Before you speak, pause and ask internally, is what I am about to say true? Is it necessary? Is it kind? This simple triage protocol is your first line of defense against unnecessary noise. The beauty of this practice is its immediate clarity. A piece of office gossip might be true, but it is almost never kind or necessary. A complaint about the weather is true for you, but sharing it is rarely beneficial to anyone. A cutting remark in an argument might feel necessary to your pride, but it fails the test of kindness. When you run your words through this three-part filter, you will find a remarkable amount of what you were about to say simply evaporates, recognized as mental clutter that does not deserve your breath. This creates space, a quiet that is not empty but purposeful. To build the habit of applying this filter, start with small, contained practices. Dedicate one single hour of your day to intentional operational silence. This does not mean you become uncommunicative. It means for that hour you commit to speaking only when a word passes all three gates. You go about your tasks, you interact if needed, but you become a scientist in your own life, observing the dozens of impulses to speak that you normally obey without thought. You will notice the urge to narrate your minor frustrations, to offer an unsolicited opinion, to fill a quiet elevator with chatter. By not acting on these impulses for just 1 hour, you weaken their automatic power. You prove to yourself that you are not a puppet of those urges. This micro-practice trains the muscle of choice. Another powerful micro-habit is the breath pause. Before you respond in a conversation, especially one that feels charged, consciously take 3 slow breaths. Do not formulate your reply during this pause. Simply breathe and create a gap between the other person's words and your own. This tiny space is where the magic happens. It is the physical manifestation of withholding assent. In those few seconds, your higher reasoning can engage. You can quickly scan the threefold filter. You can choose a response that aligns with your values rather than one that is merely a reflex. In a meeting, this pause makes you seem more thoughtful, not slower. In a personal disagreement, it can prevent a spiral of harsh words that take months to heal. This protocol turns philosophy into a series of manageable actions. 1 hour of practice, 3 breaths before reply, 1 3-part question asked silently in your mind. These are not grand gestures of austerity, but subtle adjustments to your inner operating system. They are the daily repetitions that, over time, rewire your relationship with your own voice. You begin to experience silence not as something missing, but as a presence, a fertile ground from which your few, chosen words can grow with far greater weight and meaning. A powerful silence can be easily mistaken for a cold one. This is the first and most common pitfall for anyone beginning this practice. You cultivate inner quiet, you withhold unnecessary words, and to the outside world, you may suddenly appear distant, disengaged, or even secretive. Your colleagues might wonder if you are upset. Your friends might think you are bored. A partner might feel shut out. This misunderstanding can create more discord than the chatter you are trying to avoid, which is why the Stoic practice of silence must always be paired with a parallel practice of presence. Your nonverbal communication becomes your primary language. This means maintaining gentle eye contact when others are speaking, not looking away as if you are bored or distracted. It means using subtle nods or expressions that show you are following along, that you are listening deeply. Your posture should be open, not closed off. A slight lean forward can convey interest far more powerfully than a stream of verbal affirmations. The goal is to broadcast engagement through your attention, not through your commentary. You are not retreating from the interaction, you are immersing yourself in it more fully, with your ears and your mind wide open. This visible, attentive silence transforms you from an aloof observer into a deeply present participant. It signals that your quiet is not a judgment, but a form of respect for the speaker and the conversation itself. There is also great value in occasional transparency. You do not need to deliver a lecture on Stoic philosophy, but a simple, warm phrase can bridge the gap of perception. If someone asks if you are okay during a thoughtful pause, you might smile and say, "I am just listening carefully," or "I am thinking about what you said." This gently communicates that your silence is active and intentional, not a symptom of displeasure. It invites the other person into your process. In a team setting, you might frame your restraint positively. Instead of jumping into a brainstorming session with immediate ideas, you could say, "I want to hear everyone's thoughts first so I can build on them." This reframes your initial silence as collaborative strategy, not a lack of contribution. The key is to ensure your necessary speech, when it does come, is connective. After a period of deep listening, your response should reference what was said. It can begin with "what I heard you say is," or "building on your point about." This proves your silence was not a vacuum, but a gathering space for understanding. It makes the other person feel heard and valued, which is the ultimate antidote to perceptions of aloofness. Your words, though fewer, become threads that tie the conversation together more tightly. Another subtle trap is allowing your measured speech to become sterile or overly clinical. The filter of truth, benefit, and kindness is not meant to strip language of its humanity. A necessary word can still be delivered with warmth, humor, or empathy. The Stoic ideal is not a robotic monotone, but a human voice purified of vanity and harm. When you offer feedback, it can be both truthful and kind, delivered with a tone of support rather than judgment. When you share difficult news, it can be direct yet compassionate, acknowledging the emotional weight of the information. Your tone, your facial expression, the timing of your words, all these are part of the speech act. A gentle touch on the arm, a soft smile, these nonverbal signals can wrap your necessary words in a context of care, ensuring they land as intended, as contributions to the common good rather than cold pronouncements. The practice is not to eliminate emotion from communication, but to ensure your emotions are servants to your reason, not masters of your tongue. Your calm should be a foundation for clarity, not a wall against connection. Finally, beware of turning the discipline into a source of pride. It is a quiet irony that one can become vain about their own silence, secretly judging those who speak more freely. This is the ego finding a new way to assert superiority, which completely undermines the Stoic goal of inner citadel and cosmopolitan duty. The true measure of your practice is not in how little you speak, but in the quality of peace and understanding you foster within yourself and in your relationships. If your silence is creating distance and confusion, it is time to use a necessary word of explanation. If it is making others uncomfortable, a word of reassurance may be the most beneficial and kind thing you can offer. The protocol is a guide, not a prison. Its purpose is to free you from reactive noise so you can choose the most virtuous action, which in some moments is a warm and connecting phrase. Your journey toward measured speech is not about winning a game of verbal minimalism, but about cultivating a richer, more deliberate, and ultimately more authentic way of being with others. The quiet you build inside becomes the space where truly meaningful words and truly meaningful connections are finally able to grow. The ultimate purpose of this entire discipline is not quiet for its own sake, but a life of profound integrity. The Stoics called this living in accordance with nature, which for a rational human being meant living a life of virtue. Their entire philosophy was aimed at one supreme goal, a state of flourishing they termed Eudaimonia. This is not a fleeting happiness, but a deep and abiding sense of being fully alive, at peace, and in harmony with the world and your role within it. And they saw the mastery of speech as one of the most direct paths to reach it. Why? Because every time you speak, you are not just communicating with the world, you are defining yourself to yourself. Your words are a public declaration of your private character. When there is a gap between what you think, what you say, and what you do, you create a fracture within your own soul. You feel the dissonance of that misalignment. It is a source of anxiety, of shame, of a nagging sense that you are not who you claim to be. The practice of measured speech heals that fracture. It forces a radical honesty upon you, first with yourself and then with the world. Before a word can pass the threefold filter of truth, benefit, and kindness, you must first examine your own mind. You must confront your true intentions. Are you about to speak from vanity, from fear, from a desire to manipulate, or from a genuine wish to contribute? This internal audit aligns your thoughts with your values. Then, by choosing only words that meet that high standard, you align your speech with your clarified thoughts. Finally, by acting in a way that is consistent with those chosen words, you complete the circle. Your inner world, your verbal expression, and your physical actions become a unified whole. This is integrity in its purest form. Think of a person who constantly complains about their job but does nothing to change their situation. Their thoughts are of discontent. Their words broadcast that discontent, but their actions show passive acceptance. The internal conflict is exhausting. Now imagine someone who practices this Stoic alignment. They may think critically about their work's challenges. They then choose to speak only words that are true and beneficial, perhaps discussing specific issues with a supervisor to seek solutions, or offering constructive ideas to their team. Their actions follow as they diligently work on the improvements they advocated for. Even if the job remains difficult, there is no inner civil war. They are integrated, they are whole. This harmony is what the Stoics believed nature intended for us. A tree does not struggle to be a tree. It simply is, its roots, trunk, and branches working in seamless unity. A human being in full integrity is like that. Their inner citadel is not a fortress against the world, but a well-ordered headquarters from which a consistent, virtuous presence extends outward. Their silence is the thoughtful planning within that headquarters. Their necessary speech is the clear, purposeful order issued from it, and their actions are the mission carried out with conviction. This alignment is the bedrock of Eudaimonia. You are no longer pulled in different directions by conflicting impulses. You are not saying yes with your mouth while your heart screams no. The energy once wasted on maintaining facades and managing dissonance is now freed. It becomes fuel for creativity, for resilience, for genuine connection. You experience a quiet confidence that comes not from being heard, but from knowing you have nothing to hide, not even from yourself. The philosophy of silence, therefore, is far more than a communication strategy. It is a spiritual and psychological technology for building a coherent self. It is the daily practice of chiseling away everything that is not essential, not true, not kind, until what remains is a life where your thoughts, your words, and your deeds sing in perfect, harmonious accord. And in that song you find your flourishing. That integrity between thought, word, and deed is the quiet revolution Stoicism offers. At its heart, this entire philosophy of silence is a disciplined, virtuous practice of choosing your words with immense care. It is not a vow of muteness, but a vow of mindfulness. Every time you pause before you speak, you are not just filtering noise, you are exercising wisdom. You are making an ethical choice about the kind of reality you will help create with your breath. In a world that often equates volume with value and constant commentary with engagement, this practice stands as a profound countercultural act. It reclaims your attention from the endless chatter and reinvests it into clear judgment. It transforms speech from a reflexive habit into a deliberate tool for building understanding and peace. The strength found in this quiet restraint is not the absence of power, but its most concentrated form. It is the power to not be pulled off center by every provocation, to not dilute your character with every careless remark, to hold a space of calm from which truly necessary things can be said and done. This week you do not need to embark on a grand vow of silence. The invitation is simpler and far more accessible. Choose just one conversation, one meeting, or one online interaction, and experiment with a single aspect of this philosophy. Perhaps you will practice the threefold filter, asking if your words are true, beneficial, and kind before you speak. Maybe you will implement the breath pause, taking 3 conscious breaths before you reply to a message. Or you could dedicate 1 hour to operational silence, observing the impulses you normally obey without thought. This is not about perfection, but about presence. It is about discovering, through your own experience, the profound strength and clarity that emerges when you choose your words not out of compulsion, but from a place of quiet, virtuous intent. The space between stimulus and response is where your freedom lies, and it is in that sacred, silent space that you begin to build a life of unshakable peace.